Captain Elena Reeves stood in the command center of Frontier Station Alpha, Earth's most advanced outpost at the edge of human-controlled space. The station floated silently in the void, a massive ring of steel and titanium that housed over 10,000 personnel. Through the reinforced viewing ports, she could see the distant stars, each one representing possibilities that humanity had only begun to explore. Earth had been traveling through space for just 200 years, a mere blink compared to the ancient civilizations that dominated the galaxy. But in those 2 centuries, humans had learned something crucial. Survival meant being prepared for anything. The alert chime sounded across the command center, breaking the usual hum of activity. Reeves turned from the window, her sharp blue eyes scanning the dozens of workstations where officers monitored everything from sensor arrays to communication channels. Lieutenant Marcus Chun looked up from his console, his expression tight with concern. "Captain, we have an incoming vessel," Chun reported. "Configuration unknown. Size ... massive. It's bigger than anything in our database." Reeves moved to the central holographic display, watching as the computer rendered the approaching ship. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of Earth's largest battleship. The vessel's design was unlike anything humans had encountered before, with sweeping curves and crystalline structures that seemed to shimmer even in the darkness of space. This was not a cargo freighter or a simple explorer. This was a ship built to impress and intimidate. Distance? Reeves asked, her voice calm despite the tension building in the room. 2 million kilometers in closing, Chun replied. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Standard first contact protocols. Put it through, Reeves ordered. The holographic display shifted, and suddenly the command center was looking at an alien being. It stood at least 7 feet tall, with pale silver skin that seemed to glow faintly. Its eyes were large and golden, set in a face that was both beautiful and unsettling. The creature wore robes that appeared to be woven from liquid metal, constantly shifting and flowing across its body. Behind it, Reeves could see the bridge of the alien vessel, filled with technology that made Earth's most advanced systems look primitive. "Greetings, inhabitants of this system," the alien said. The translation software rendered its voice as smooth and melodious, almost hypnotic. "I am Archon Velaris of the Zephron Collective. I speak with the authority of the High Council, representing 4,000 star systems and 63 species. We have observed your expansion into this region of space with great interest." Reeves stepped forward, making sure she was clearly visible on whatever screen the alien was viewing. "I am Captain Elena Reeves of the Terran Space Command. On behalf of Earth and the United Terran Government, welcome to our space. What brings the Zephron Collective to our borders?" Valeris smiled, though there was no warmth in the expression. "Your borders. An interesting concept. Captain Reeves, the Zephron Collective has maintained order in this sector of the galaxy for over 20,000 years. We have guided young species through their early steps into the greater community. We have prevented wars, shared technology, and brought prosperity to countless worlds. It is time for humanity to join this great union." Something in the alien's tone made Reeves uneasy. This was not a friendly invitation. This was something else entirely. "We appreciate your interest in establishing diplomatic relations," Reeves said carefully. "Earth is always open to peaceful contact with new civilizations. Perhaps we could arrange a formal meeting to discuss mutual cooperation?" "Cooperation," Valeris repeated, and now his smile widened. "Yes, cooperation is exactly what we seek. Captain, let me be direct. The Zephron Collective is not requesting diplomatic relations. We are offering humanity the opportunity to join our union under the guidance and protection of the High Council. You will retain governance of your worlds, your culture, and your way of life. In exchange, you will acknowledge the authority of the collective, contribute resources to our common prosperity, and provide military support when called upon. The command center fell silent. Every officer was staring at the holographic display, understanding exactly what they were hearing. This was not a partnership offer. This was a demand for submission. Reeves felt a cold anger building in her chest, but her expression remained neutral. And if humanity chooses not to accept this offer? Valeris tilted his head slightly, as if surprised by the question. Captain, I do not think you understand the situation. The Zephyron Collective encompasses 4,000 star systems. Our fleet's number in the tens of thousands. Our technology is millennia beyond yours. We have integrated 63 species into our union, each one benefiting from our wisdom and protection. Humanity currently controls 17 star systems. Your combined military force consists of perhaps 300 warships. The choice before you is not whether to join the collective, but whether you do so peacefully or after unnecessary conflict. That sounds remarkably like a threat, Reeves said quietly. It is a statement of reality, Valeris replied. Young species often struggle with pride when first encountering the greater galaxy. They believe their brief history makes them special, that their primitive weapons and untested warriors can somehow resist the natural order. Every species that has chosen resistance has eventually surrendered. Some quickly, some after devastating losses. We prefer to avoid such waste. Accept our terms now, and humanity will flourish under collective guidance. Reeves was quiet for a long moment, studying the alien's face. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had worked for 2 centuries to build something new among the stars. She thought about the wars humanity had survived, the disasters they had overcome, the sheer stubborn refusal to give up that had carried them from a single planet to 17 star systems. And she thought about what her government had tasked her with protecting: human freedom, human independence, human choice. Archon Valeris, she said finally, and her voice carried a steel edge that made several officers straighten in their seats. I want to make sure I understand your offer correctly. You want humanity to surrender our independence, accept foreign authority over our worlds, and provide you with resources and soldiers whenever you demand them. And if we refuse, you will attempt to force us into submission through military action. Those are crude terms, but essentially accurate, Valeris said. Then let me give you humanity's answer, Reeves said, stepping closer to the holographic projector. The United Terran government rejects your offer completely and without reservation. We will not surrender our independence. We will not accept foreign rule. We will not become another species added to your collection. The border of human space is clearly marked. It will be respected by the Zephyron Collective and all other powers. Any unauthorized crossing of that border will be considered an act of war. Asterisk, for the first time, Valeris's expression showed genuine surprise. His golden eyes widened slightly, and behind him, Reeves could see other aliens on the bridge turning to stare at their view screen in apparent disbelief. Captain Reeves, Valeris said slowly, perhaps you need time to consult with your superiors. This is not a decision one individual should make. I don't need to consult anyone, Reeves replied. I am speaking with full authority from my government. We anticipated this conversation. We prepared for it. And our answer is no. Not now, not ever. Valeris's face hardened. You are making a catastrophic mistake. Your species is barely 2 centuries old in space. You have no allies, no ancient weapons, no hidden reserves of power. What could you possibly possess that would give you confidence to reject the Zephyron Collective? Reeves smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Archon, humanity spent 10,000 years fighting on a deadly planet. We fought each other, we fought nature, we fought extinction events and plagues and disasters that would have ended weaker species. We learned something in all those centuries of struggle. We learned how to survive against impossible odds. We learned how to adapt, innovate, and win when victory seemed impossible. And for the last 100 years, knowing that species like yours existed out here, we prepared for exactly this moment. She leaned forward slightly. You see 17 human star systems on your maps. What you don't see is what we built in those systems. You don't see our defenses, our weapons, our contingency plans. You don't see what we're truly capable of. So let me give you some advice, Archon. Take your ship, return to your High Council, and tell them that humanity chooses to remain independent. Respect our borders, and there will be no conflict between our peoples. And if we don't? Valeris asked coldly. Then you'll discover exactly why every species in human history that underestimated us eventually regretted it. Reeves said, Cross our border without permission, and you will face consequences that your ancient empire has never experienced. This is not a threat. It's a promise. Test us, and you will lose ships, lives, and the reputation of invincibility that you've built over 20,000 years. The silence that followed was absolute. Valeris stared at her, his expression cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally something that might have been calculation. Behind him, the bridge of the alien ship had erupted into quiet chaos, with officers apparently arguing among themselves. The High Council will hear of this insult, Valeris said finally. They will not be pleased. Good, Reeves replied. Make sure they understand that humanity is not interested in joining their empire. Make sure they know that our independence is not negotiable. And make absolutely certain they comprehend that crossing our border means war. The transmission ended abruptly. The holographic display returned to showing normal space, with the massive alien vessel still holding position 2 million kilometers away. Reeves stood quietly for a moment, then turned to face her command staff. Every officer was watching her, some with expressions of awe, others with barely concealed fear. Lieutenant Shun, Reeves said calmly, send a priority message to Earth Command. Inform them that first contact with the Zephron Collective has occurred and that we have rejected their terms of submission. Request immediate activation of Protocol Sentinel. Yes, Captain, Shun replied, his fingers already moving across his console. Commander Sarah Mitchell, Reeves's second-in-command, approached quietly. Captain, do you really think they'll respect our border? Reeves looked back at the viewing port, where the alien ship remained visible as a distant point of light. No, she said honestly. Empires like the Zephron Collective have ruled for so long that they can't imagine being told no. They'll test us. Maybe not immediately, but soon. They'll send ships across our border to prove that their threats have consequences. And when they do? Mitchell asked. Then we show them what humanity has been building for the last century, Reeves replied. We show them why you don't threaten a species that learned to survive by refusing to quit. We show them that we meant every word of that warning. She turned to address the entire command center. All stations, move to Condition 2. I want every sensor array active, every defensive platform online, every ship in this sector ready to deploy on 5 minutes' notice. The Zephron Collective is going to come. When they do, we need to be ready to teach them the most important lesson they'll ever learn. What lesson is that, Captain? An ensign asked. Reeves smiled grimly. That humanity doesn't bluff. 3 days passed in tense silence. The Zephron Collective's massive vessel had departed from the border, vanishing into the depths of space without another word. Captain Elena Reeves knew this quiet was deceptive. Empires did not simply accept rejection. They retaliated, and the only question was when and how severe that retaliation would be got. The answer came on the 4th day. Captain, multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace, Lieutenant Chun announced, his voice sharp with urgency. Reading 47 vessels. Configuration matches Zephron Collective warships. They're forming up at grid reference Delta 7, just outside our border. Reeves was already moving toward the central display before Chun finished speaking. The holographic projection showed the alien fleet in perfect formation, a wall of ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever assembled. Each vessel was a work of art and engineering, their crystalline hulls reflecting starlight in patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. But there was nothing beautiful about their purpose. This was an invasion force. Distance to border? Reeves asked. 50,000 kilometers, Chun replied. They're holding position. Wait, receiving transmission. The holographic display shifted, and Archon Velarus appeared once more. This time he was not alone. Beside him stood another alien, taller and more imposing, with darker silver skin, marked by geometric patterns that glowed with a faint blue light. This creature wore armor instead of robes, and its golden eyes held no warmth whatsoever. "Captain Reeves," Velarus said, and his voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Allow me to introduce Commander Thane of the Collective Military Authority. He has been assigned to deal with humanity's unfortunate refusal to accept reason." Thane stepped forward, his massive frame filling the display. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, like distant thunder. "Captain Reeves, I am authorized by the High Council to give you one final opportunity to accept the Collective's terms. Surrender peacefully, and your species will be integrated without bloodshed. Refuse, and my fleet will cross your border and enforce compliance. You have 1 standard hour to respond." Reeves studied the alien commander carefully. Unlike Velarus, who seemed to view humans as amusing primitives, Thane appeared to be a professional soldier. His stance, his tone, his entire demeanor spoke of someone who had fought countless battles and won them all. This made him dangerous, but it also meant he might understand what she was about to tell him. "Commander Thane," Reeves said clearly, 4 days ago, I warned Archon Velarus what would happen if collective forces crossed our border without permission. That warning has not changed. Turn your fleet around now, and there will be no conflict. Cross that border, and you will regret it." Thane's expression did not change. "Captain, I have reviewed your species' military capabilities. You possess approximately 300 warships, most of them outdated by our standards. Your weapons technology is primitive. Your defensive installations are inadequate. You cannot win this confrontation. Surrender now and spare your people unnecessary suffering." "We will not surrender," Reeves replied simply. "Not now. Not ever. You have 59 minutes to withdraw your fleet." For a moment, something flickered in Thane's eyes. Was it respect? Curiosity? Reeves could not tell. Then the alien commander nodded slowly. "So be it. When your systems fall and your ships burn, remember that you were offered mercy. What happens next is your choice, not ours." The transmission ended. Reeves turned to her command staff, every officer waiting for her orders. The weight of what was about to happen pressed down on the command center like a physical force. Humanity was about to face its first real test against a galactic power, and the outcome would determine whether Earth remained free or became just another conquered world in the Collective's empire. "All stations move to Condition 1, Reeves ordered. "Execute Protocol Sentinel. Authorization Reeves Alpha 779er. Commander Mitchell moved to her console and entered the authorization code. Throughout human space, systems that had been dormant for decades began to wake up. On 17 worlds, hidden facilities deep underground received the activation signal. In orbit around every human planet, defense platforms that had appeared to be simple satellites suddenly revealed their true nature. And in the vast emptiness between the stars, something stirred. "Protocol Sentinel is active," Mitchell reported. "All systems responding. Neural network establishing connections. Quantum field generators powering up. Captain, We're about to show them something they've never seen before. Reeves nodded. Humanity had spent the last 100 years preparing for this moment. Every resource, every breakthrough in physics and engineering, every lesson learned from Earth's bloody history had been poured into one singular project, ensuring that when humanity said no to a galactic empire, they had the means to make that refusal stick. The hour passed. Thane's fleet began to move. 47 Zephyron collective warships crossed the border into human space, their formation perfect, and their weapons charging. On the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, Commander Thane watched the tactical display with practiced calm. He had conquered 16 systems in his career. This would be the 17th. All ships advanced to the human colony at Kepler 442. Thane ordered. Maintain formation. Weapons free on my command only. I want this to be precise and overwhelming. Show these humans what resistance costs. The fleet accelerated, moving deeper into human territory. Thane expected to see human warships scrambling to intercept them. Instead, there was nothing. The space ahead was empty, except for the usual debris and cosmic dust. Perhaps the humans had realized the futility of resistance and evacuated their colonies. It would make the occupation easier. Then his sensor officer spoke, confusion clear in his voice. Commander, I am detecting anomalies throughout the system. Multiple objects, very small, appearing and disappearing from sensors. They do not match any known configuration. Thane frowned. Weapons platforms? Unknown, sir. They are too small to be conventional platforms. Some appear to be only 2 meters across. And they are everywhere. Thousands of them, scattered throughout the system, in no apparent pattern. Before Thane could respond, the anomalies activated. Space itself seemed to ripple. The small objects that had been drifting passively suddenly blazed with energy signatures that made the collective sensors scream warnings. And then they moved, accelerating at speeds that should have been impossible, closing on the fleet from every direction simultaneously. Evasive action, Thane shouted, but the collective ships were too slow. The human weapons were too fast. The first wave struck like a hammer of light. Beams of concentrated energy tore through shields that were supposed to be impenetrable, cutting into the crystalline hulls of collective warships. But these were not conventional weapons. The beams phased in and out of normal space, bypassing defenses by existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ships that had survived centuries of warfare found their armor meaningless against weapons that struck from angles that should not exist. What are they firing? Thane demanded, gripping his command chair as the Eternal Dominion shuddered under multiple impacts. Quantum displacement weapons, his science officer reported, his voice shaking. They are manipulating probability fields to make their attacks exist in superposition states. Our shields cannot block something that is simultaneously real and unreal. Commander, this technology should not be possible. The mathematics alone require computational power that exceeds our entire fleet's capacity. Another wave of attacks swept through the formation. 3 collective warships lost propulsion. 2 more reported critical damage to their power cores. Thane watched in growing disbelief as his fleet, which had seemed invincible minutes ago, was systematically torn apart by weapons they could barely detect, much less counter. Return fire, Thane ordered. All ships, target those platforms. Maximum firepower. The collective fleet responded with devastating force. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and kinetic accelerators lit up the darkness, destroying dozens of the small human platforms in brilliant explosions. But for every platform destroyed, 20 more appeared, materializing out of apparently empty space, as if they had been hiding in folded dimensions. And they kept attacking, their coordination perfect, their targeting impossibly precise. On Frontier Station Alpha, Captain Reeves watched the battle unfold on her holographic display. The Sentinel protocol was performing exactly as designed. The quantum platforms were not individual weapons, but nodes in a vast networked system, each one connected through entangled particles to a central artificial intelligence that could process battlefield data faster than any organic mind. The platforms could phase in and out of normal space using principles that humanity had discovered only 50 years ago, making them nearly impossible to track or destroy efficiently. But the real breakthrough was not the platforms themselves. It was what they were connected to. "Captain, the collective flagship is attempting to withdraw," Lieutenant Chun reported. "Their formation is collapsing." "Not yet," Reeves said quietly. "Activate the Nexus." Throughout human space, the quantum field generators reached full power. Space itself began to distort as humanity's most closely guarded secret came online. The generators created a bubble of altered physics around the entire battlefield, a region where the fundamental constants of reality could be adjusted according to human needs. Inside this bubble, human weapons became more efficient, while alien systems began to malfunction as the rules they depended on shifted. Commander, Thane felt it immediately. The Eternal Dominion systems began reporting impossible readings. Power flow became unstable. Weapons that had functioned perfectly for centuries suddenly misfired or failed to discharge at all. Even gravity inside the ship seemed to fluctuate, making officers stumble and equipment shift unpredictably. "What is happening?" Thane demanded. "They are manipulating the underlying structure of space-time," his science officer said, his voice filled with awe and terror. "Commander, they are changing the rules of physics itself within a localized region. This level of technology ... The collective has theorized about such capabilities, but we estimated it would take another 1,000 years of research to achieve. How can a species only 200 years in space possess this?" Thane had no answer. He watched his tactical display as ship after ship reported critical failures. The collective fleet was not just losing the battle. They were being rendered helpless by technology they did not understand and could not counter. This was not war. This was a demonstration. And then Captain Reeves contacted him. Her face appeared on every screen in the collective fleet simultaneously, her expression calm but unyielding. "Commander Thane, this is Captain Reeves. Your fleet has crossed into human territory without authorization. You are experiencing the consequences I promised. Currently, my weapon systems are operating at 30% capacity. If I increase to 50%, none of your ships will survive the next 5 minutes." Thane stared at her, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. 30% capacity? The weapons tearing his fleet apart were not even at half power? "I am offering you the same choice you offered humanity," Reeves continued. "Withdraw now, and you will be allowed to leave. Your damaged ships will be permitted to make repairs in neutral space. But if you remain in human territory for another 60 seconds, I will interpret that as a desire to continue this engagement, and I will respond accordingly." Thane looked at his tactical display. He had begun this day with 47 warships. Now, only 31 were still combat capable, and even those were suffering from cascading system failures they could not explain. His flagship, which had never taken serious damage in 100 battles, was barely functional. And the humans claimed this was only a fraction of their capability, for the first time in his long military career. Commander Thane understood what it meant to be completely outmatched. "All ships," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of defeat, "withdraw from human space. Emergency jump on my mark." The surviving collective warships retreated, their hyperspace drives engaging in uncoordinated bursts as each vessel fled back across the border. Thane was the last to leave, his flagship limping away from the battlefield, while human weapons tracked its every movement, but did not fire again, as the Eternal. Dominion crossed back into collective space. Thane looked back at the human territory they had invaded. The quantum platforms were still visible on sensors, thousands of them, waiting patiently for the next intrusion. And beyond them, he could sense the presence of the Nexus, the reality-altering technology that humanity had somehow developed. Despite being one of the youngest species in the galaxy, ARCHON, Valorous appeared on his communication screen, his expression shocked. "Commander, what happened?" "The fleet was supposed to. The fleet was destroyed," Thane interrupted. 31 ships survived out of 47, and most of those are barely functional. Archon, the humans possess technology we cannot counter. Weapons that attack from multiple dimensions. Systems that alter the laws of physics themselves. And they told me they were operating at partial capacity. If they had used their full strength, none of us would have survived. Valorous was silent for a long moment. But they are only 200 years in space. How is this possible? Thane thought about Captain Reeves's warning, about humanity spending 10,000 years learning to survive against impossible odds. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we made the same mistake every empire makes. We assumed age equals superiority. We thought our 20,000 years of civilization made us invincible. But the humans learned something we forgot long ago. Desperation breeds innovation. Fear drives adaptation. They prepared for us because they knew species like us existed. While we grew complacent in our power, they built weapons specifically designed to defeat galactic empires." He looked at Valorous directly. "Return to the High Council. Tell them that humanity is not to be threatened again. Tell them we encountered a species that does not bluff, that does not surrender, and that possesses the means to back up every word of their warnings. The border of human space is to be respected absolutely. Any violation will result in losses the collective cannot afford." On Frontier Station Alpha, Captain Reeves watched the last collective ship vanish from sensors. The command center erupted in cheers, officers embracing and celebrating humanity's first true victory against a galactic power. But Reeves remained quiet, her eyes fixed on the display. Commander Mitchell approached, her expression triumphant. "Captain, we did it. We actually did it. We beat them. We survived them," Reeves corrected gently. "Which is what matters. The Zephron Collective learned that humanity means what it says. They learned that our borders are real, and our warnings have teeth. And most importantly, they learned that being ancient does not make you unstoppable." She turned to face her command staff. "This was the first test, but it won't be the last. Other empires will hear about what happened here. Some will respect our strength. Others will see it as a challenge. We need to remain vigilant, remain prepared, and remember why we built these defenses in the first place, because freedom is never given. It must be defended." The cheering subsided as officers returned to their stations, the gravity of Reeves's words settling over them. Humanity had won this battle, but the war for independence in a galaxy full of ancient powers was just beginning. Yet as Reeves looked out at the stars, she felt something she had not felt in days: hope. Humanity had proven they could stand against empires that had ruled for millennia. They had shown that youth and determination could overcome age and arrogance. They had demonstrated that the human spirit, forged in 10,000 years of struggle on a deadly planet, was not something that could be conquered or suppressed. The Zephron Collective had demanded access to Sol. Terran Command had said denied. And when tested, humanity had made that denial absolute. The border would hold. Earth would remain free. And the galaxy would learn that humanity was not another species to be added to someone's empire. They were something new, something dangerous, something that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. The age of human independence had begun, written not in treaties or diplomacy, but in the wreckage of an empire's arrogance and the proof that when humanity said no, they meant it with every weapon, every innovation, and every ounce of stubborn determination that had carried them from a single world to the stars themselves. Commander Thane would report this defeat to the High Council. The Zephyron Collective would remember the name Elena, Reeves, and the day they learned that threatening humanity came with consequences they could not afford. And across the galaxy, other empires would hear the story and wonder, if the mighty collective could not break these humans, could anyone? The answer, as Captain Reeves knew with absolute certainty, was simple: no. Because humanity had learned long ago that survival meant never giving up, never surrendering, and never accepting anyone else's vision of what they should be. They were free, they would remain free, and any power that forgot that lesson would learn it the hard way. The stars stretched endlessly before Frontier Station Alpha, full of ancient civilizations and unknown dangers. But humanity was ready. They had been preparing for this moment for 100 years, and they would continue preparing for whatever came next. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They won, got, and they never, ever backed down. Asterisk.